This is for your side of the table, so we can hear it. I can tell it's doing. Light up, that's not good. Hers is obviously really low. So she was like, yeah, no, I'm still going.
I was an Yankee for the Girl Scouts. Christy said you guys cleaned up at Walgreens before the Super Bowl.
It did.
That's great.
Yeah.
And we're doing the same way.
Yeah, right, so. Is that what? So if we want to look at a policy, you can click on it and show it. Yep. Okay.
Welcome, everybody, as we return from closed session to open session. We are now at the public comments portion. And I believe we don't have any public comments. Addition of non-action items. So Jim, you had a couple of things you wanted to bring up to the non.
For future discussion.
You want to make the point, please?
Oh,
We don't
yeah.
do it, so-
First. The first being, that there seems to be a disconnect between the information that, the parents and guardians of the students get and what the taxpayers are able to, and the information that they're able to receive. So, I'm proposing that for discussion, that we come up with a way when there's issues, especially those involving financial situations, and even social situations, that somehow that taxpayers are informed of what's going on. Now, we do have equal access when it comes to the website, but parents and guardians are given emails and other communications that that the taxpayers and people that don't have students in the schools, they're getting information, or I'm sorry, they're not getting the same kind of information. So in short, this unjustly limits the taxpayers from the information that's required to evaluate District 24 school board spending, and they have questions properly addressed. Another proposal would be for parents, teachers, and union members, elected officials, and all the other concerned people that showed up at the last couple of meetings, that we try to work together in order to move the state to a voucher system. There was certainly a lot of concerned parents over the last couple few meetings. So what I was able to take away from that is that all parents are extremely concerned about their kids, and that's great. It's very commendable. But there are situations that have been coming up where parents should be able to have the choice to be able to have the money follow their student to the school of their choice. So right now, what I think we're looking at here is that the school district is working really hard for acceptance from for some of the students, and that's great. But what's happening here is that there are other parents that disagree with this, and they should have an opportunity to be able to move their student to a school of their choice. This is going to be a very hard sell in this state, but there are 21 states who already have one form or another of voucher system. So it's not impossible. And to be able to have these parents have the opportunity to be able to decide when their kids go to school, I think is commendable. And again, everyone that had spoken up here, they were concerned about the kids, whether it was parents, taxpayers, union members, teachers, everyone was concerned for the kids. So the idea here is that be concerned for all kids and be concerned for their parents. So what form this would take, I don't know. But it's certainly a start, and it's not unheard of. Then the last action item to hopefully be discussed in the future is that again, going to the menstrual product dispensers in the boys restrooms. That the district that we consider having these, that we consider having those devices be defined as an attractive nuisance. And by that I mean, if a kid is found to be using one of those machines inappropriately or defacing it, that they would not be held responsible for that. It's a temptation, and it's more than likely going to happen. So disciplinary action against the kids should really not be something that the kids should have to deal with. Doesn't seem, in some ways it doesn't seem logical. Then after that, the parents should not be held financially liable for any of the damage. Again, we're having a temptation, and we're dealing with boys of a certain age, and things are just going to happen. Parents aren't there, and it's likely going to likely to cause issues. So in short, not holding the parents accountable for the damages. This would include, but not be limited to, the destruction of the devices, graffiti and scratching of the devices, emptying the contents of the devices, misappropriating the contents of the devices, and plumbing issues associated with the contents of the devices. We can't be tempting the kids and then discipline them because they follow through on the temptation. So those are the three items that I would suggest be considered by the board in the future.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
Can I get some clarification, Jen, before we
Move on, so I understand what you're asking for. So when we put these items on the agenda, are you going to write a policy, the last agenda item, the nuisance,
I could.
attractive nuisance? Would you please write a policy and put that on the agenda then for review and vote? Great. The first item was about communication to the public.
Yes.
So, you and I have had discussions about this. For an agenda item, what is it that you are looking for as part of the board taking action? What would that action be, so I can be clear on how to prepare?
Yeah, that was it.
So what we have now, I'll just have to yell.
Yeah.
What we have now is, we have parents who, or anybody in the community can opt into a email that I can send out. It's just a public email that we have people that choose to opt in. So there's 100 or so email addresses. That's one option. So we can advertise that as we have in the past. We could do another campaign and push that out. They don't get all of the emails. They may not choose to get some of the field trip emails and things like that. But when it comes to referendum and levy and some of those more important things to the public, that would be important, and I choose to push that out to that group as well. So that's what we do now. What would your ideas? I'd love to have some ideas, or maybe we start a committee for how do we reach out to taxpayers that don't have students in the district.
And that's why I'm making it a proposal, so that there would be a discussion. So that the board could try to determine a path forward. So right now, what we have
To
is
make a plan.
we have an opt-in. And I don't know what an opt-out would look like, or if it's even feasible. But at least to go down that path and see. And I can get with you on the policy?
Yeah.
Okay. I will make a point of that.
What was your second item? Voucher. Oh, was that a statement or is that so, and again, I'm just trying to clarify to help us focus our
Yeah.
goals. So that would be legislation,
State legislation.
state legislation that we would be targeting. So the board could present a resolution, and there's a process for this,
Right.
to the IASB to support that. You could go that route. But that's not legislation. Or the board could, or anybody in the community, you could put together a committee to present to your local legislators.
Right.
The legislation and ask them to push that forward.
I was aiming more towards a committee and a discussion to see what the interest would be for working with concerned citizens, parents, students, union members, et cetera, and see if there was any interest even in moving forward with trying to do this. This is trying to push a boulder up the hill in this state. But, I mean, everyone is concerned about parents and the kids especially. And the parents were very vocal. So if they're concerned about the kids, they're concerned about all kids. And if the parents are going to say that I want my kids to be taught in a different manner, that would mean that the money for teaching those kids needs to go to the kids. And it needs to follow that where their parents choose to send them. Yeah. So, again, I don't know, call it grassroots. I don't know. And after my tenure is over, on this board, I would be more than happy to work on that and work with the board in order to see how that would work out. So that would be contacting and getting with all the interested parties that I've already listed.
For that third item.
Yeah.
So the board is able to create a policy and vote upon it. Is that what I heard the next step is?
Yes,
Okay.
they can.
So if someone defaces the machine with, like hate words or discriminatory words, would that be baked into the, like?
Yeah, so
if
I don't think
there's,
we should get into the discussion now.
Okay.
Good question. I think there's a lot of issues that would have to be resolved, and we've run this past our attorneys, of course, what we do for all of our policies that we create. Yeah. So the only question I have for clarification is what is our end product going to be? So clarity is, we are going to make a policy that tries to meet the outcomes that the board is at. And then the board can, once the policy is made, then you can vote on the policy either up, down, or go back and change it. And
but it would still have to follow law.
yeah, we still have to follow law.
Okay.
Correct.
We good? All right, action items, approve the final reading of the board policy. So does anyone have any of these policies they want to pull out or take a close look at? Yes, John.
Yes, we're ready. All right, can you bring up, I believe it is, 4.165.
You want the updated one, Commissioner? Yeah. You want the updated one?
Or do you-
Either one's kind of fine. I don't really see that much difference between the two. So if you want to do the updated policy, you can do the updated policy. If you want to do the current policy.
So let's probably vote on the updated. Let's bring them.
Okay.
Oops.
You make it bigger? Okay, and this is more towards Jake. I've been talking with him since January about this. This kind of just, child abuse, grooming behaviors, harm for the students, harm for the parents. It seems as if the district's position is, we will create a curriculum, we will sit down, we will have a discussion with the students. If this topic is broached, we will give the students plenty of, I think it says 5 days notice prior to talking about this topic in case parents want to opt out or whatnot. I'm not really concerned with the policy, but more the application. I've been speaking with you. Last spring, the middle school gave out a reading requirement for the Paul Gill books. Now is that close enough? Yeah. Close enough. Okay. Went through them, read them. There was an option. It was pick 3 out of 20 and go through it. Read them all to work with my kid on which one to read. found one that really struck me interesting called Fighting Words. I made sure to read the book before I came to the meeting tonight, so I know what to talk about. It does deal with these issues, but it is not really presented as a part of this policy. So my question is, why, how, is there plans to integrate it? What happened and going from there?
So what's the question?
The question is, we are writing this policy saying we're going to have an educational platform where we're going to give 5 days to parents if they want to opt out. We're going to have a curriculum for them. And then we have this book that
It's
was-
not required.
is not required. It's an optional book.
Okay.
But it was given outside, or what appears to be outside of this policy. And my question is why, how, and what can be done to rectify that, or if this was just say,
So you have a so the question about the content of the, I haven't read the book, so I have no idea. Nor is it part of our school curriculum, nor is it part of this particular policy, so.
but it
You're talking-
deals with, I mean, if we're gonna sit there and say, hey, we, bring it up, we care about this issue.
Right.
This is an important issue that we talk about it only in this
Context.
context, right? And then we have a book that's outside of that context.
So how do we, so you're asking, it's a good question. So you're asking a question of how do we monitor our books for content?
Context, and if we wanted, okay, I have no problem if it's included in the curriculum, but why was it kind of out on its own little island out there when we have this, when we're about to pass this curriculum on how we're gonna teach this topic?
I don't know. I think there's some nuance there, but I didn't know anything about this, so.
I know, well, that's like I said,
Trying to process.
I've been prepping with Jake, who's the principal at the middle school. So I'd like to.
So can I research that and get back to you on that process and why, how particular books are chosen? It's model books, so part of that series is you have the option of reading every title book, and then the kids have a book discussion. So it's not taught by our teachers, so your concern is if there's content that might be
That falls under this
that falls
policy.
under, so we should tell parents ahead of time to say, there may be content in these books. These are books that have not been procured by our curriculum committees yet. These are this is content outside of that purview, like the library. There's books in the library that we find once in a while. We don't read every book that comes into our library. There's content. Maybe question.
Right.
So when we find out about it, we look at it and talk about it. So, can I get back to you on that?
Sure, yeah, well, then can we not vote on that? Well,
No,
no, because I don't have.
because I don't think you want to take that away.
I don't have an issue with the policy.
Okay.
It's
That's
the
fine.
application, it's the
Right.
application.
So your question is, are we following the policy?
Yes,
Now, can I get back to you?
yes,
The policy is okay,
the policy,
because I like this policy.
I like the policy too, but it's the application of the policy.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone else have any of these policies they want to pull out or discuss?
I don't have anything that I'd like to pull out, or even the content that I'd like to discuss. I only ask, and Jason, the question would be to you. For policy 2265, 4165, 7285, and 7290. Are you confident that we have the adequate, like, procedural and support
Yes.
staff and stay in place well. Okay.
Yep.
That's really my only question, because he's,
So the
you know, there's
suicide awareness, for
responsibilities.
example, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big, that's Henry's law, and again, there's process. procedures.
Okay.
And I'm more confident of that now after going through our compliance visit. Because this is what the compliance visit does, is look at our policies and procedures and make sure that we have them. So we passed that section. Good question. Thank you.
There's no more discussion on this. Can we have a motion to approve the final reading of the following board policies?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Move on to approve the contract with Consolidated Chicago for flooring replacement at Millburn Elementary School in the amount of $93,268.52.
Okay. Change the.
So this is tied to the, school maintenance project grant that we received. So we received $50,000, dollar for dollar, well, up to $50,000 matching grant. So we have to spend 50,000, we get 50,000 from the state. Jason, would you be able to click on my, business
Yep.
office report? The second page shows, of that report shows, we're looking to do here. Scroll to the side. And then if you're able to flip it, well, so there, we looked into 3 different areas, and got prices, from Consolidated Flooring. What they came back with that felt most, fiscally conservative at the moment is, this area 1, which happens to be the room we're sitting in right now, the cafeteria. So Dr. Lind and I are recommending, the board to approve the contract with Consolidated Flooring in the amount of $93,268.52, to redo the floors in this cafeteria. What this means is we will need to do probably another room, like a classroom, or possibly recarpet the front office here at the elementary building. We have to get over that $100,000 threshold to get the full $50,000 match. When I was working on numbers, to determine where we would be in our Fund 60 capital projects, I guesstimated that this overall project would cost $125,000. So we have about $30,000 to spend to get us over that $100,000 mark. Even with spending $125,000, that would leave about $363,000 remaining in Fund 60 capital project.
How old is this floor currently?
22-ish, 22 or 23 years old.
And the warranty, I assume we're getting a luxury vinyl or whatever it's called.
So with this, yeah, and it, well, that I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find that information and email it tomorrow. But this would be a continuation of the flooring that we moved through right outside the door here.
And those are 20, 25 years estimated lifespan on those two.
I'm sorry.
Those have an estimated lifespan of like 20 to 25 years.
So if these are 22 years old, then there's no, asbestos abatement needed.
No,
Why was this room decided to be cleaned or updated instead of the asbestos?
because to remove the asbestos, would cost considerably more. And
I
I
thought
think
we were gonna break it up with you.
overlay.
To clean up with that asbestos, break it up.
But what we talked about, there's only that one hallway that's up, so what's difficult for the asbestos abatement company is there's an extra fee to get all of their machinery up the stairs, it was very difficult for them to do that. So when we looked at what we paid for the asbestos abatement last summer, and what it would take to remove the asbestos in that hallway, and replace the flooring, it would have considerably, eaten down to $363,000. It's in 160. And one thing to keep in mind with the flooring in that hallway, it's in excellent shape. There's no harm to students. It's fully, intact. It's not breaking apart. It really stands the test of time compared to the other flooring throughout the building.
Will they be removing this flooring or covering it?
Removing it.
All right, and then it looks to me like this is probably over concrete.
Probably, yeah.
So I have a question on the grant itself. When would we have to spend that money in order to do the benefits of that grant?
By the end of this school year, the fiscal year.
So May, June timeframe. And for asbestos abatement, we do that when the kids aren't here. What other areas were considered that might be in worse shape?
This is the worst shape because it gets the most use. The hallways that we did last year were in worse shape.
Mhm.
You know, that's why we started with the main hallway and
Right.
that way, that was pretty rough. This is the next worst shape by a good stretch because it gets the most traffic. And you got
Yeah.
stuff in here. You can see that it just looks dirty to me. But, then we talked about the other two hallways going off that way from the main hallways and down to the band room and down the kindergarten rooms. Those would be the next areas, other than the asbestos abatement section,
Yeah.
which is actually in the best shape of all of them, unfortunately. Because that stuff worked. But,
And I have the other, on that
Just about-
map, the other two hallways.
And I know we talked about this originally, so the amounts that you were quoting, I remember recalling 125 to 130 area. But I don't recall this being identified as the area.
Yeah, when we talked about it originally, I was always going to ask for this room, the band hallway, and the kindergarten hallway. And the reason for that is because if we think about how we've been doing the floor, replacing the flooring in this building over the past few years, we've been basically moving from the east to the west.
Mhm. So when a question was asked about the vinyl flooring, are we certain what product they would be replacing? Because it sounded like we weren't certain exactly what product they'd be using.
it's the same. as
It's the
hallway.
same,
Exact.
yeah, in the hallway right outside here.
Here's my other concern that Carly and I have talked about just briefly is, flooring patterns go out of style. And we've got a lot of different flooring patterns already in this building because we've been replacing the last few years. So it's gonna look pretty goofy if we have a different flooring pattern in each hallway that can't get something that's close to match. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. We don't have the money. I mean, it'll be $1 to do the whole first, just the first floor, much less the second. So we don't have that kind of money yet. That's why we're doing it in smaller chunks. But the quicker the better. Humble opinion. For that.
Other provisions, after they pull this tile up, if there's, something not going quite right with the concrete. And, I mean, is it a fixed then, in other words, do they need to fix the concrete if it needs to be, or what?
Yeah, and that actually happened when we put the, flooring down, over by where the nurse's office is now. There were some issues with the concrete, and so we would fix it that. And the reason why, I'm recommending this smaller space right now is for instances like that. So if something pops up unexpected, we still have a good chunk in that fund 60 fund balance to fix concrete or, manage any other major repair that pops up.
that would be on our time.
Right.
Any other questions? We have a motion.
I would almost like to table this, just to look at the numbers again. I mean, we're talking about the property tax relief grant and what that's gonna do to us. I don't know, I wouldn't like to spend the money just to get a grant. And as I look around, I think the floor does- there's some discoloration, but I don't see damage.
So we voted in the fall to request this grant, and we did, so we're getting that money. Oh, we have to spend the money. The money comes before we spend it.
So we have to choose a project.
Right. Yeah, and if we wanna look at the other two, I can give you the dollar amounts for the band hallway and the kindergarten hallway.
This is being a self-contained movement, or being concerned with the patterns and that. Would those other hallways address that concern?
The patterns,
Talking about the patterns that we have in the vinyl flooring, and that being a concern, I look at this as more of a self-contained room. There's not flow from one space, continuing through. And if we have a concern about that pattern going obsolete, do those other projects, address that concern to a greater degree. It sounds like the answer is yes.
yeah, you can pull that up too. When you're talking about the patterns, are you referring to the
The floor
circle?
pattern and the style of the flooring.
Yes, yeah, and they put that into the drawings. So it's kind of hard to see, but yeah. What appears yellow there is actually the gray flooring.
Okay.
And then that blue circle is where the stage is. Well, not the stage itself, but right in front of the stage, because the flooring on the stage is relatively new, so we would not be replacing that.
So in the band hallway, they would match whatever material and style is currently installed.
We do believe that there's a little bit of like, not a little bit, that when the floor was picked out last year, we did question the flooring companies to make sure that this would be a product that's around for, not obviously indefinitely, but for a while. So it was not, one of the, flooring colors and patterns that would be meeting their lives.
And do we know the age of those floors? Are they
No.
equivalent to this, about equivalent to this?
The other floors?
The
Yeah,
age?
they're all original.
Okay.
Yeah, this section was built in 99. So
So
we're
this is the original flooring.
from 99.
So what is the cost of the project for the other hallways?
For the band hallway, which is that middle picture right there, in black and white. That is. $144,613. And then for the kindergarten hallway, it's $158,919.
Is there any room for negotiation? Is there additional negotiation that could be done, or have we
This
gone
is
back
a
to them first?
contract. I can ask, but it's a contract like within a consortium that we're a part of, so those numbers are usually set. Possibly, or one of these things, whatever is going to bump us over, or, if we wanted to just push the go with the band hall instead. What I wouldn't be comfortable with right now is doing two of them.
Yeah, right, yeah. For me personally, I'd like to table this because we do have a little bit of time there. We have a few months.
Well, however, though, in terms of getting someone to come in and do the work, consolidating flooring to do the work during the summer, we wouldn't be able to wait a couple months because they're filling out their
But
summer
we
schedule.
have some time, right? Because, so now with the grant, it has to be spent by the end of the school year.
We have to have the project in, so what, it needs, to be we have to have the project agreed to basically, so.
Agreed to, but not completed.
Right, not completed, so part of what we didn't fully pay for last year's flooring project until after the end of last school year. But what we can't do is have a project, say that we're going to do a project in October with this money. This has to be for this school year.
Understood.
So my concern, yeah, I understand. Our concern is we're planning now for the summer. So we're scheduling around summer school, we're scheduling around different projects. And this is a big one, which would, if it's just this area, it's not too bad. We can isolate this pretty easily, but the hallways are get a little tricky.
Right.
Question, on the map,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right. The stage over there is shaded black.
No, the
this-
shade's not on, there, so that blue circle is in front of this stage.
Okay.
And then,
So that, the stage up there would be included in,
no,
no,
because the flooring on the stage is actually new, or, it was replaced like, I think, 2 years ago. Maybe 3.
What would you think the final date would be where we would have to make a decision? Well, you don't want to wait 2 months.
No, I would say we would probably want a special session in the next board meeting. I think that we would really need to make a decision here, so that we can guarantee that we get them to come in and do the work.
Next board meeting is the 13th, and then the 20th is following that, so that's 3 weeks. The next board meeting where we can vote is within 3 weeks.
Can I ask you what information you would like for the
See
next board
if we
meeting?
can negotiate down the price of the hallways. My concern again is that bring up the styles and then we have so many different patterns now. If that is a real concern, then I would like to see that concern addressed for continuous hallways, always. Because visually, you're gonna see that this is self-contained. We went solid blue or whatever color, it's not a problem. Right? And so I would just like to see if that price could come down. I mean, if this is their first proposal, I'd like to see if there's any kind of improvement on that price.
So I think, and I will ask Sean, but I think one thing that when we're looking at state bids and consortiums, this isn't going to, the flooring store and
Right. Right.
trying to get the lowest dollar. So I can ask them, do you have a number that you're comfortable with?
If they could do, we're looking at getting 50,000. Right.
We are getting 50,000.
Right, we're
Yeah.
looking at getting 50,000 in that. We also have the consideration of the property tax relief grant that going through and the impact to us. So at this point, my mode would be spending as little as possible in a way that makes the most sense and that we can gain the most benefit. If we can't do any of the abatement for asbestos, then we should at least do something that, one, gets a lot of traffic. Right, this, okay, it gets traffic, but I would imagine always get a lot of traffic, through traffic. And 2, addresses the concern of not having 10 different patterns. Having it something that's, there's visual continuity in the hallways.
So then, if they're not able to adjust their prices, would you be comfortable with that the band hallway, which doesn't get as much traction or traffic. But it's 144,000, so 20,000 more than,
Yeah, there's 144 and then 158.
right,
So the 158, you think that gets more traffic and would have higher impact to the visual continuity than the band.
but
So, I mean, I just think that we should look, see if there's anything. Anybody else feels benefit to that? If not, then we can go to vote.
I think we should get it done. Like, I mean,
Okay. I mean, in general, everybody wants to go to vote. Say we go to vote.
One other thing, real quick, just trying to take a quick look at the floor. It looks to me that there are some cracks in the concrete, hopefully small ones that are coming up. And it's like there's some things drop real heavy on the tile. And what it may have affected the concrete underneath it. So, there potentially was going to be an additional cost to straighten that out. Or when they pull this tile up, everything's going to be minor and they'll just cover it with the big product. But, looking here, it looks like there may need to be some more.
so the proposal includes skim coating, a double skim coat. I don't know if that would address anything, but one thing to note too, when we removed all of the flooring in the other hallways and classrooms, when I mentioned earlier that there was a concrete issue, it wasn't the base, it was actually that the floor pulled away from the sides of the building, and we had to fill those in. So
When they said double skim coat, is that? Are they skim coating the concrete? Or are they saying that that's the adhesive that they're going to?
No, it's skim coat concrete, so they come in with a machine, it's a very liquid. They pour on it, it's like a leveler, the self-leveling stuff.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, me too, and it's
Yeah.
not easy to put on. But they come in with machines and they're good at it, and they just whip that out and do that twice to make it smooth, because any little variance in the floor,
He's gonna come right through the.
yeah, it won't, then the tiles will lay flat, so.
Okay. And if memory serves, then it does have some, waterproofing capability.
Probably, I don't know, sure, but
Stuff I'm thinking of, but yeah.
yeah, and if not, the mastic with the movement they put down, then we'll probably have that. They do a good job, I mean, we've watched the process several years now.
You feel like you want to vote on it tonight? Or hold a special session?
I'd rather just vote on it.
Someone make a motion?
so moved to approve funds to replace the tiling on the carpet, or on the cafeteria.
Second,
Roll call.
Sean Coleman,
No?
Jim Kuziak,
Abstain.
John Renson,
Yes.
Brendan Murphy,
Yes.
Peter Peterini,
yes.
And the motion passes. All right, moving on to the approval of the concussion oversight.
Okay, so as part of our compliance process, we have to do a concussion oversight team. We've had this in place in the past, but this takes a board action according to board policy to have this team. I wrote that out in my board notes last week. The members of the team would be myself, the two nurses, and PE teacher from each building in the athletic.
We have nurses.
We do have nurses, yeah.
Well, I know, because we've had two resign, like,
No, we have currently 3 nurses. 3 full-time nurses.
This is from the state, this concussion oversight team,
Yes.
and it's clear as far as what is required of that, or is it just?
Yeah, there's
general?
steps that we have to go through. This is checking box,
Okay,
steps that we have to go through. So we have to create a protocol, concussion protocol, return to play or return to learn protocol.
Okay.
For example, nurses have, if someone comes in from recess for a bump on their head, they have to wait 30 minutes, observe that student, make sure they're not concussed. Call parents. Something happens in a athletic event, then the coaches are all trained, they have to go through training.
To be clear, we're not making what constitutes a concussion.
No,
We're developing a plan on how.
we develop the plan and monitor the plan and then create it. So nothing can happen, and part of that plan is the doctor has to approve somebody to come back and play. So if a coach sees somebody hit their head pretty hard, or a PE teacher sees somebody, or a recess supervisor sees somebody whack their head pretty hard, the nurses are notified, of course, and would do an evaluation if it's during the school day, but in the evening, those kids would have to go to a doctor to be evaluated before coming back to school. Yep, no, we want no part of it.
yeah, that's.
Medical decisions,
Yeah.
not, no.
Any other questions? If not, can we have a motion on this?
Move to approve the concussion oversight team.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the memorandum of understanding for the interim dean students.
So, just as a refresher, we had an assistant principal resign in January at the middle school to fill some of those roles and responsibilities for the rest of the year to get us through. We have a teacher on staff who is filling in what amounts to be 2/3 of her day. So she's giving out 4 classes that she's teaching and doing discipline and some scheduling and planning and supervision and covering for IEP meetings, 504 meetings and such. So because she's on a teaching contract, we don't have any stipend for that position. This is the memorandum of understanding saying that there will be a $3,000 stipend for that time period for the remainder of the year.
Who's okay with that?
Yep.
Questions? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding for the interim dean of students.
Second. Thank you. Roll call?
Brendan Murphy,
Yes.
Peter Pellegrini,
yes.
Ron Coleman,
Yes.
Jim Kuzier,
Yes.
John LaFrenza.
Yes.
Awesome. Approval of property tax relief grant resolution.
All right. This is where it gets a little more exciting. This is the best news Millburn has had since the passage of SB 1 in 2017, which also saved our tushies. So, the property tax relief grant in its basic form is simply an exchange with the state. The state is trying to reduce property tax, local property taxes from us and replacing that with state monies in exchange. And what they're doing is starting with the districts that are the highest tax districts in the state and working their way down. So Millburn started out as 100 and something, 110 out of the 650 school districts in the state for the highest property taxes, which is no surprise to any of us in the room that are paying those property taxes. And we've worked our way down because the school districts ahead of us have taken advantage of this and are no longer on the list. So it's actually working. The one school district that some of us live in would be Lakes High School. So they did this, I think, starting 4 years ago, and they got it twice in a row. Somehow they got it twice in a row. So that has really had impact on our tax bills. for those of us living in the Lakes District. It doesn't feel like it because Millburn has been on upside with our bonds, paying off our final payment of our bonds in 2023, which has been talking about for a long time, finally getting to that point. So our bonds were structured such that in 2004, when they issued the bonds, everything's booming. They expected a lot more houses to be built. That load would be spread out down the road over more households and won't be such an impact. Well, in 2008, when everything stopped, that became a problem, and that's not good for bonds that are laddered and such that come out at the end, the balloon at the end. So we have our biggest payment this year on the bonds. So that's why our tax bills in the, at least in the Millburn Lakes section, have not shown a drop necessarily, but they have not gone up as much as they could have or would have had this not been in place. So this is one policy at the state level that is working well, very effective, and that I appreciate it. Now Millburn is finally up on the list to that point where we're 21st or 22nd this year out of the state for the highest tax district. So we get it. So what happens is the state is going to give us $777,000 as long as we abate $896,000 this year. We have to do that 2 years in a row. So for 2 years, we're going to have to abate back to the taxpayers $896,000, which is about, for a $300,000 home, about $300. Ish. So if anybody wants me to calculate their particular property, I'd be happy to do it. It's really easy. I've got the spreadsheet out. I've done my house. My taxes will go up $28 this year, all Millburn taxes. I don't know about the other 14 taxing bodies, but the Millburn section will go up. Well, $28, it would have gone up $300+ if we didn't take advantage of that. So it'll go up $28 this year, and then next year it will go down $1,600-ish when we abate again. And then the following year, it will come up from that point, but it'll still be lower than what it is today. So looking back at the history of my property, which is interesting because you can see all the, go back 20 years and see what's happened with the district, but not only with the district, with my particular house. And each of you can do that. It's all public information. Anybody can do it. So there's years where it would go up 24%. Next year it would go down 24%. Based on the assessments and the valuation and all of that. So there's no rhyme or reason. Everybody's house is going to be different. So even if your house is valued at $300,000, yours might go up more or less, depending on what everybody else does and how the assessor calculates that assessment for the year. So this is good news for us. 2 years from now, so we do this for 2 years, FY24, FY25, and then that $770,000 that the state gives us, they keep giving us that. That becomes our base funding minimum going forward. And then the district no longer has to abate that $896,000. So that $896,000, then taxpayers have to pay that again. But it's coming back up to the current levels minus the bonds. So it may get us out for running another referendum for a few more years, which is quite good news for many of us. So I'm thrilled with that piece. And hopefully in the meantime, if we can get businesses to, if our tax rate looks better, it'll be more attractive to businesses because, I've heard from some businesses that are, have buildings in our district. How do you cover that overhead before you even start creating a product? It's a significant, so I understand that. I don't like it, But that's just the way it's been set up, and we're trying to do whatever we can to, we have always done whatever we can to be aware of that as best we can and manage those two competing factors. So all we need to do is pass or have the board approve this grant resolution. We're off and running.
Do you have any questions, Kevin?
We covered this pretty well.
I think so. I'll send out a email to the parents tomorrow. Maybe I'll include that other group. If you guys
I
could
think-
forward it,
I think they'd love to hear
I think so. If you could forward it out on Facebook or whoever your friends, that's how the word gets out. And I'm happy, again, answer any questions about taxes anytime. That's one of the fun piece.
it. You gotta get out.
Need better copy.
We have a motion to approve the property tax relief grant resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
John Lorenzen,
Yes.
Brendan Murphy,
Yes.
Peter Pellegrini,
Yes.
Sean Coleman,
Yes.
Dan Guzio.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Great. The resignation of board clerk Veronica Lynn Thomas. Questions? Is the motion?
I move to accept the resignation of board clerk Veronica Lynn Willis Collins.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda, does anyone have anything they'd like to pull out? Can we have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as reported.
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Sean Coleman,
Yes.
Jim Guzio,
Yes.
John Lorenzen,
Yes.
Brendan Murphy,
Yes.
Peter Pellegrini.
Yes.
Information and discussion item. Parent university session and topic.
Okay. So at the beginning of the school year, when we're talking about goals for the year, we talked about getting parent input, parent connections. In the past, we've had parent universities where we've had different sessions, different topics that we would come in and discuss on a variety of issues. I'd like to have discussions on some of the hotter topics. I don't know how to frame that necessarily, always. I think that's becoming clear now. And I think some of the discussions of the last couple of board meetings, we've had that up. If there's anything that is positive that can come out of that, it's, hey, now we've been there, we've done that, we've all said our opinion, now let's sit down and talk about how this works for Millburn. In addition to that, there are there's legislation that's being proposed, and the board knows about this and have been informed since January, that would have a big impact on Millburn financially, and parents should probably know about this and how Millburn would handle it. For example, in January, in the lame duck session, there was a proposal from the state, and it was followed up from last session about the state mandating the national sex education standards in Illinois. So you'd have to teach it at K through 12 comprehensive sex education standards, and whatever you might think about those standards and that content, I think it's worth a conversation about how would we handle that, going kind of back to John's point earlier and back to that policy. How does Millburn handle those topics? And what grade level would that be appropriate for some of that content when you have a choice, and do parents have a choice to opt out of that, and what would that look like? And are parents aware of that? And it's not yet legislation, so if parents are in support of it, right, contact your local legislation and support that. If not, once you understand what the ramifications are and the cost of that, perhaps we'd be opposed to that. That funded mandate again, then how do we contact our legislation to say, here's some points, have you considered the cost to school districts for implementing this program? Maybe it's a great idea, maybe it's not, but the legislation needs to at least know what those costs are and the impact of them. So having that, that's what I would like to have a conversation. And that's a little bit tricky. For sure, but I think if we can't have that conversation in our district, it can't happen anywhere. And I think, I trust our community, I trust people here that, we might get a little heated once in a while about things and not understand when we don't have the information. And the board meeting's not necessarily the time and place to have a two-way discussion and talk about some of the nuances of this and how, how it's actually impacting students in a more detailed way. But I still think it's important. So, and I enjoy those conversations, actually. I know it's weird. But
Not weird at all.
that's the way it goes.
In some ways, they're sitting at the items that I brought up earlier this evening for discussion. One is we'd like to have taxpayers that don't have kids in the school, that they be involved with this. Again, you mentioned that another mandate that the state isn't paying for, and that will directly come out of the taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Then, because of the content of what we're talking about, if it passes, this is yet another thing where parents should have the opportunity to just not opt out of the education, but to opt out of the district. And that would lead us back to having money follow the child. And then again, vouchers. So depending on how far this goes, I mean, both of these ideas could potentially be presented in this form, in this meeting. And I think
The voucher idea I'm not going to touch on because that's a separate, I view that separately.
okay,
Maybe you don't, but that's a huge legislative push. I'm concerned about the reality of what happens with the national sex ed standard. If we're mandated to teach that at our school district,
right.
who does that? Who would be teaching that? How would parents know? Are parents aware of it? Are parents aware of the content? I don't know if they are.
Probably not.
Yeah, but there's a campaign to get educated on that.
Right, so that would be part of that initial discussion. Maybe that comes out then with focus group, so we can get ahead of some of these issues versus being reactionary, which is not a comfortable place to be. So the other part of that conversation that same night, I'm suggesting this on, you guys got the schedule. Is that any questions on that? Does that work?
I'm sorry, what night is this?
The first one will be March 15th. The second one would be April, there'd be one in April, and then I think April 17th, Monday, April 17th, so trying two different nights, Wednesday to Monday, April 17th, and then again, May, one of the Mondays of May. The first topic would be the most controversial, I believe, which would be how do we handle and keep kids safe at school with bathroom issues and transgender, and maybe reviewing some of the laws about that, and then what the process might look like for how we support kids in that, and how we keep kids safe, no matter what our thoughts are on that.
If, how are we able to attend if we're prohibited by?
So the way the Open Meetings Act is, you can attend and participate. You can't lead and you can't discuss as what a board action would be. And this would be more informational discussion on board action. What items. Board action might come out of that, and then that would be a board thing. So you all can attend. Just fine, because you're not leading, you aren't interacting, you would just be part of the participation in that discussion. Does that make
Right,
sense?
oh, yeah, it does, that's the way that they run that before.
Yeah, right.
So I've
Yeah.
been to a couple of
Strategic
them, and it's, you show up and you have your opinions, like, like anyone else.
Yep.
In other words, show up as a taxpayer, if you want to view it that way.
So school safety, then the second one's what, the K-12 sex stuff,
No, that's first thing.
that's the night.
And the second one, no, I'm blanking here, it's been long. You guys remember?
No.
One's restorative practices, and the other one was the math. Talking about, potential, which is our next topic.
Realignment.
Potential. Maybe.
Alright.
Okay,
Let's go
So-
right into that.
let's go right into that. So if you have any questions about that, we're gonna send that out tomorrow or Wednesday. Maybe I'll separate them from the tax thing, so people can marry it to.
So is it better to give them the good news first, or to invite them, and then give them the good news?
It's all good.
That's all.
But the agenda item will be identified on the invitations, right?
Yes, so people know what to expect.
Right.
Potential math realignment in middle school. We're looking at aligning our math more to potentially, we're just discussing this at this point, and I want the board and community to have a heads up. I talked to Lakes High School today, and I'm talking to Warren High School tomorrow, and I'll talk to Grace Lake too when I get a chance. Right now, the way math works, the reason I want to have this conversation is because I don't want parents to get to seventh grade and be surprised about the math track that their kids are on. Let's have that conversation a little bit earlier than that, so people know what the plan is. For those of us that have had kids go through the district, maybe we understand it a little bit better, but if you haven't had kids go all the way through and through high school, you might not know what that math track means and how we do it at Millburn. So the way it currently works is there's a time for acceleration in third grade through our accelerated math program, our gifted and talented math program in third grade. So kids are screened at the end of second grade. If they qualify, then they can go into that program in third grade. So that's one group of children that are accelerated at that level. The rest of the kids that are in the general ed math curriculum up through fifth grade. Actually up through sixth grade. Then in sixth grade, that accelerated group, our gifted and talented math group in sixth grade takes the seventh and eighth grade regular common core math class. It's called accelerated math in sixth grade. And then they're on track in seventh grade to do algebra 1, high school algebra 1. It tracks with high school algebra 1 honors. They do that in seventh grade. And then in eighth grade, they do high school honors geometry course. Then if they go to Warren, they go into high school honors algebra 2. They go to Grace Lake, they go to high school algebra 2. If they go to Lakes, they either go into math 2, because Lakes has an integrated math at their high school level, or math 3, depending on how they qualify at that point. as a freshman, some kids would be in math 3, and some kids would be in honors math 2. So that would be the highest track. And then from math, after math 3, they would go in as their sophomore year would be pre-calc. Their junior year would be calc AB or calc BC, depending on what they choose. And then their senior year, their only option is statistics, AP stats. That's one option. The next track, then, kids who have gone through, who didn't make that jump at 3rd grade, go through the regular course, and after 6th grade, then they can jump up into accelerated track after 6th grade and take accelerated math in 7th grade. And then in 8th grade, they would complete high school algebra 1 honors. So if you think about our 6 sections of middle school math, we have one who is in 8th grade doing geometry. We have 3 sections doing high school algebra 1, and then we have 2 sections doing grade level. All good. All great. They're still all have a chance to go to college at all of those levels. They still all have a chance in that second track. Parents get very concerned that they're not in that highest level, but they're not going to get calculus as a senior. They can still take AP Calc as a senior. Why they would want to take AP Calc as a senior? I don't know, but they can. Some kids are really into math. I have one of those in my house and loves that. It's great for him. The other one, not so much.
Calc is fun.
Okay.
No.
Oh, it is.
No,
Okay. Guess I'm one of those.
Yeah. You're one of those.
Yeah, I'm one of those.
It's weird. It's wonderful.
I have-
So anyway, that's what I want to explain to everybody as that, because we don't do a good job. Sometimes we just assume I know what it is, so everybody should know what it is.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
And I would have to give the people that had asked me about this, but coming out of Millburn and going to Lakes.
Yep.
It was a kid that I don't want to call it an AP class, a freshman. Okay. But some kind of a more advanced math class who left Millville, but had to go to summer school because they didn't meet some criteria.
Correct.
Oh, it's not you.
No, my son,
Okay,
my son and did that,
okay,
just in order to be able to be on this advanced track, so. My understanding was standard, I don't think it was, and Jason, unless you're aware of this, it wasn't a deficiency of curriculum, it was just that was a requirement to prepare the students. I think that's regardless of where they fed into.
Well, so that's part of this realignment
okay,
process.
that was gonna be my
So
question.
getting to that realignment, because Lakes has an integrated math system, so integrated means that they're doing algebra, geometry, and trigonometry all 3 years together, integrated, versus your traditional geometry, algebra 2 progression. Back when I went to school, it was different progression, algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry. Now it's all wrapped up into one, in math 1, 2, and 3 at high school. So our kids, having done algebra 1, going into that math 2, they shouldn't be in math 1, it's a little bit too easy for them. They should go up to that math 2, but they're missing the geometry component, so they have to take a bridge course to get into that math 2 honors.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to fix, because, and this is where I want to have that conversation, which gets a little tricky. We've been aligned to the Warren system and Grace Lake system, but most of our kids go to Lakes. So what do you do? So next year, what we're doing is we're gonna have one section, we think we can make it, we're not sure, but we're looking at one section of kids going to Warren and Grace Lake that would take that algebra 1 it happens to work out nicely, maybe next year, we'll see. And the other two sections of that, middle level would take integrated one.
Sounds involved.
Yeah, it's involved, so it's not gonna happen overnight, but we're looking at transitioning that over the next couple of years. We want the board and parents to know where we're going and what that means. It's not gonna mess up the map, it's just trying to tighten it up a little bit and make it a little bit easier for more kids. But I'm talking to Warren tomorrow to see what that's gonna do. The Warren kids, if we go integrated. And all of our kids do very well. Very well,
Well, we were high on that too recently, right?
yeah.
Like with us or something, so. So the curriculum won't get changed, it's just revamped, reorganized.
They're still gonna learn the same things, it's just different
Okay,
order and
good.
different process and to match up when they get
Okay.
some of that. Content. So that's more of a heads up, but that's gonna be one of our parent university sessions, so. There's no surprises there. Talking about content and what it is. One in May. I think it's
Mhm.
I think it's the last one to give us time to talk to the high school stuff. Math, and see if it works in the schedule. There's a lot. A lot of moving pieces.
Anybody, there's a FOIA request for from Gavin Good of the Chicago Tribune and Lake County News Sun, asking for the resignation letter from Veronica Lewis. Future agenda items for policy updates, is, waiving state holidays, investment opportunities, MPSS, chapter, and the stuff that Jim mentioned earlier. Anybody want to add anything else to that? Superintendent's report.
Okay, but I covered most of it already and it's getting late, so I'll try to be brief, but I have one request for the board, and that is to move the April 10th meeting to April 3rd. Does that work?
Anybody have a problem?
April 10 to April 3.
Huh?
Day before election day.
April 3rd is? It shouldn't impact us.
Works for me.
And then keep the 24th. So we go third and then the 24th.
3rd and 24th.
So March, we have 13th and 20th.
Mhm.
13th and 20th. 27th is spring break, and I'm assuming not everyone will be. That's good.
Sounds good to us.
Okay, so we will move the board meeting from April 10th to April 3rd.
Business office. You're done.
I'm done. Oh, accomplishments. So part of our activities in the morning, on Tuesday, when we had our teacher in service, was to have each group, each family, we had 27, I believe, different groups of teachers, groups of anywhere from 4 to 7. Teachers, bus drivers, custodians, parapros, secretaries, all working together. And I just asked them to list their accomplishments for the year on there, just so they could see, hey, we've worked hard and done some stuff. So if you want to take a look at the accomplishments around the room, there's some repeats, but some that are unique, and you could tell if there's a tech person on the team or custodian on the team or somebody else, which is great. That was the whole purpose of that. So that's what's happening in Millburn. If you want to take a look at that before you leave. Thanks, probably.
Okay, Carol, go.
Mine's really quick, just an update on investing. So Dr. Johns and I met last week to go over projections through the end of this school year. Seeing how much money we have to invest. So, what he wanted to share was your policy 430 that works or walks through the process that the district takes in terms of investing. And what the next step is, and what he's working on right now is contacting different investment managers to get different rates.
4:30.
Yeah, board policy 430, and if you go into this agenda and click on my the business office report, I.
Thank you.
It's out there anyway.
Thank you, sir. Board report.
I'm empty this time.
The board is looking for a great interaction opportunity come Wednesday night to the Millburn Elementary Showcase. I know it's on.
5:30 to 7.
Thank you. I don't know why I didn't talk to you right away, Susan. Here, she's in charge. 5:30 to 7. Great opportunity, lots of parents and kids running around. Showing off their stuff and reading. Good stuff.
I think a couple of our alumni, won some recognition. Saturday night.
Yes.
Right. A drummer and bass player.
Lincoln?
Lincoln.
Down to the left.
Mike, you got a recognition as a outstanding drummer, and then the jazz band at Lakes, which is filled with a lot of late Millburn graduates, came in first place in their division.
It is great. That was fun. Warren was at this jazz band concert too, or contest. So we saw another former student who plays trumpet.
He did not win.
He did not win? He didn't. He's good. A lot of good success from our kids. High school.
Yes, we got some good kids right now in eighth grade. Right?
Yep.
That's it. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now adjourned.